Welcome to Branding the Beltway. I'm Stacey Piper, a 25-year government marketing expert and the host of the podcast that helps you level up your B2G marketing game with actionable insider tips and real-world case studies. If you're in the business of doing business with the government, you're in the right place. Each episode delivers straight-to-the-point strategies from senior marketing leaders familiar with navigating the unique world of GovCon. In each episode, we'll first explore that month's topic on a macro level, talking strategy with CXOs. Then we'll deep dive into the same topic on a micro level, examining the practical approach of development and implementation. We're talking brand awareness, content strategy, and the campaign tactics that actually move the needle. Whether you're a CXO, a growth strategist, or a marketing practitioner looking to strengthen your federal position, Branding the Beltway is your essential resource for driving results and winning more contracts. Let's connect strategy to execution and position your brand to win. Hi, and welcome back to Branding the Beltway. Today's episode, we're going to talk with Liz Anthony about planning agile marketing strategies for a dynamic sector to balance short-term and long-term success. Liz is the Managing Director of Federal Market and Competition Strategy at Maximus. Maximus is a trusted service delivery partner and architect of government technology solutions. They empower communities by ensuring seamless and equitable access to government services.
Thanks so much, Stacey. Glad to be here.
We're so glad to have you. Can you tell us a bit more about yourself?
Sure. Happy to share that. So I've been in technology marketing for my career. Started out many years ago with IBM, and I've worked for a variety of technology organizations, service providers, and now with Maximus, and looking forward to having a conversation today.
Absolutely. Well, let's jump right in. You know, the first half of the podcast, we always talk as if we're the in-house marketing leader, which you are, speaking up to the CXOs about why to invest, how to invest, all those kinds of things. So let's start that conversation at that 30,000-foot view. In your own words, why is it important for government contractors to invest in strategic marketing, especially in a sector driven by long procurement cycles and contract vehicles?
So when I have conversations with CEOs and chief revenue officers, chief growth officers, it's really around how marketing is a strategic partner into a whole mix of driving growth. And really, marketing has moved from more of a functional space in this functional organization to more of a strategic business driver. And I think that's the bigger conversation.
That's excellent. And, you know, we talk about, you know, the buzzwords right now all around efficiency and agility and those kinds of things. And when we think of agility in marketing, you know, how do you define it, and how do we strike the right balance between being responsive to emerging opportunities while staying committed to long-term strategic vision?
Having a strategic vision and really building that on that agile kind of a business environment that we're in right now is critical. And so that really, to me, means that it requires sales and marketing, growth capture, all being at the same table and all looking at what are the key priorities of the organization based on what are the priorities of the agencies that we serve, and then backing into that kind of conversation, because it's multifaceted. It involves research, market research. It involves strategy, messaging, positioning, resourcing, campaign development, and then data analytics of what's the impact and what are the outcomes.
Absolutely. I see what you mean. So when you are thinking about building a marketing approach with an agile framework, like what does that mean for resourcing, for planning, et cetera?
Well, I think that one of the things in an agile framework that comes to mind when I'm looking at it is how to get out of a rigid kind of planning process into more of a dynamic planning process. And I think what that requires is sales, marketing, having quarterly meetings, definitely. Sometimes monthly meetings, depending on what's happening in the organization and in the market. And then really looking at how are we getting information on the customer and what they need and what they're going to be having to acquire over the next, let's say, 12 to 18 months, and then backing into that into what are the solutions that we can provide, and then how do we very simply communicate that to government, leaders. So there's a variety of leaders we have to communicate with, whether it's at the C level of an agency or the mid range of an agency, or the influencers of agency solutions and policies. So I think that it really, you back into it, but then it's also, we really need to make that shift in terms of we need to go from trying to insert a technology to really understanding the needs of the organization and talking about solutions that match their needs and being innovative about that. Because right now, agencies are asking us how to bring technology faster into the agencies and help them solve really complex problems in a cost-efficient way. And that's what we need to be ready for together with the sales, marketing, technology, operations, kind of being at the table together.
That's a really good point. And so often marketing communications is kind of put in its own little bubble, and that closed feedback loop or, circular feedback is really important.
It is.
With all the folks that are hearing firsthand from government, from their clients out at agency events, et cetera.
Well, I always say too that marketing is really having the voice of the customer in that kind of discussion when the customer isn't able to be in the room. And so they, we're talking to customers all the time. We're interviewing customers. We're at conferences with customers. And we can bring that knowledge to the table at the front end of a process to really have the greatest impact. But if you're at the back end, there's not as much that you can do to influence or impact the decisions and the process if you're at the very end of a cycle.
I wanted to, before we leave this idea of building that agile framework, I wanted to find out how you think companies can build agility within their marketing team.
Some of the things I look at are what are the resources that are needed from a vertical perspective, and what are some of the resources that are more horizontal, or what are the resources that pull across an organization that can be streamlined and scaled, that will give you the greatest impact while you have marketing subject matter experts aligned with the growth and capture experts or business development experts that really give you that depth and understanding of the agency and the audiences that you're going to be working with. And so I think that's really important. And then in that centralized versus embedded kind of environment, the embedded resources really become very tight with the teams and are really able to help in the market research, in the messaging, in the planning, in the strategy. And that becomes invaluable to the process of accelerating growth in a very streamlined capacity. And I think that's key. And then looking at what are the customer engagement, what's the customer engagement model that you're trying to implement? So where in the cycle and the tactics that are happening in the framework are you able to get impact through customer engagement that really is going to influence what we hear about a very fast, rapidly changing environment that will help us to better understand how we resource and how we plan and how we solution.
To your point, I think the embedded model, like I work with your team, I see your content. The ability for those marketers to really understand the agencies and the solutions for that vertical is invaluable. And it's just a force multiplier, right? Because they're out there reading and talking and distilling content themselves from competitors and from the industry at large. And so they can identify things, flag things, and share it back to the team as well. That's great.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think the embedded model is very interesting and needed because there are priorities shifting, especially in this kind of really rapidly changing market. Priorities are shifting from week to week. How do we look at ways to create really valuable content and then use that multiple ways so that it has some efficiencies and scale as you're creating new content on new solutions, et cetera.
Absolutely. You mentioned earlier about the importance of like sales and BD and marketing alignment. And so I wanted to just kind of dive into that a little bit further and have you provide tips to CXOs on what other things they can do to empower marketing to be a driver for business growth.
I think one of the aspects for that I've had conversations about is having a seat at the table so that you can look at how do we align people, partners, technology, as well to the opportunities, right? So in this environment where cost, efficiency, et cetera, are very important, having that line of sight on top opportunities, and those are shifting. Absolutely. So you are constantly having to have conversations. And I always share with my team, I think marketing planning now is a very dynamic process. So you have to be always looking at that document, editing, shifting, depending on what's happening with the agencies that you have, while you're planning for some long-term capacity. And what I mean by that is two things. One is the capacity to support programs or contracts that you're going to try to win in the next 12, 18, 24 months, long term, while you have that short term line of sight on impacting thought leadership that's going to allow you to shape some of the thoughts of new ways of doing things that might not have been thought of before. What's the possibility now with a more dynamic environment that new opportunities can be looked at that were never before possible? That's one thing. And then the other is really looking at what is your capacity as a team? What kind of skill sets do you have? I learned a long time ago, everybody cannot do everything. You have to have a diversity in your team skill set. So there are some people that are great content writers, some people who are excellent at data analytics. Others are amazing at creativity and content creation. So when you have that kind of diversity in your team, you also can really accelerate in a very dynamic environment.
I like that. And so you've got people driving those verticals forward and people wearing multiple hats. Are there any other tips for resource planning or diversity within the team?
I think that building trust across an organization is really critical because you lean on each other a lot during a very rapid scaling motion. And so I think as you build, as I've built marketing teams, building that trust between marketing, sales, operations, technical teams is critical because then you can then call on each other. You know when you need things fast, when you need things on appropriate time schedules. And then it allows you to really have strong conversations with subject matter experts that you really need in order to write good content, have appropriate speakers for panels, all the different tactics that you need to implement. It just allows you to get the right resources at the right time for the right conversations with customers.
Before we kind of leave this empowerment topic, are there any other tips or advice you would want to offer business leaders, whether it be the CXO or a P&L leader or the leader of a specific product or solution, on how to work with marketing when things are changing so quickly?
I would say three things, really. One is clarity on priorities is really critical. So it's when you get vague inferences on priorities or not updated quickly enough that you see a lag in impact. And then the second thing I would say is that marketing needs to be empowered to make decisions quickly, because oftentimes we're asked to participate in things that give us a strategic advantage, and we have to make a decision quickly. And then the third thing is budget. And so that's always a topic. So there needs to be transparency and a realistic look at market acceleration, what that requires, how to do it. It can be done a lot of different ways, but it also needs to have, if you're trying to make a huge pivot in the market, that's rarely done on a very tight budget.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's, you beat me to the chase there. I was going to ask you about budget next. So, surely for marketing to be a strategic growth driver and not a service bureau, right? It's an investment. What type of impact should leaders expect to see if they make that kind of investment?
I think for the most part, you really have to look at what kind of metrics are important to your organization. For Maximus, awareness is really key. In elevating the brand has been very important over the last couple of years as I've been here. Customer engagement is pivotal, because when we can talk with customers, that really makes a difference in how we can move forward faster and really getting to see how we can help and support the organizations. And we know we've been in business for a very long time, so we know we have the capabilities of looking at business processes, technology, innovation, et cetera, that can really support the organizations that we're working with. And we have great customer scores for that. But we also have to look at from a metrics standpoint, how are the deals being influenced? And so I think that's really important. But other organizations may have other metrics. I think defining them early on is key.
Absolutely. You have to know what you're measuring, where the goalpost is, if you want to make a goal, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for this conversation. When we get back from the break, we will examine this same topic of agility and planning for short-term and long-term success from the more pragmatic implementation lens. We'll be right back.
Thank you so much.
This episode of Branding the Beltway is brought to you by Piper Strategies and Orange Slices. Piper Strategies, marketing that moves the needle. Piper Strategies is a full-service creative agency for leaders serious about growth. We decode the complex, translating mission-driven work into clear, compelling narratives. Our clients expand their reach, communicate with impact, and earn trust in competitive markets so they can win more work. We don't just deliver results, we build your internal marketing muscle. With Piper Strategies, clients grow with us until they outgrow us. It's a partnership-first, unagency approach that not only gets you noticed and builds credibility, but also scales your brand and your team. Learn more at piperstrategies.com. Orange Slices, fresh intelligence for B2G success. Cut through the noise with Orange Slices, a trusted source for public sector insights, teaming opportunities, and procurement intel. With a playful name and a powerful platform, they're serious about making data accessible and usable so the entire GovCon community can thrive. For resources, visit orangeslices.ai. Welcome back. We're here with Liz Anthony from Maximus, and we're looking at the conversation on agile planning for marketing success, speaking now to marketing practitioners and leaders. So Liz, for those working in marketing day to day, what is the first step to creating this flexible marketing plan for the dynamic GovCon environment?
So I think the greatest skill that a marketing leader can have is really listening, and then activating on that listening. And what I mean by that is, I think one of the first things in a planning environment is really getting together with the sales, capture, BD teams that I've spoken about earlier, and really listening to their needs, listening to what they're hearing from customers. You can learn a lot from that. And then implementing that into a strategy, and then again having a conversation, feeding back what you heard, and then getting input again. So we can guide a lot of things based on our experience, but it's really that listening cycle that will be key. And I think then you move into more of a process of storytelling. I think that's really important. And so helping the sales and BD teams to really understand how to tell the story we have, they can identify components of the story. And then by being able to do the plan and then articulating that storyline, I think it really helps them envision how the conversations could be had with the customers that they're trying to meet.
That's great. Earlier, when we were talking to CXOs, you mentioned customer engagement, and you talked again here for marketers to be listening to what the customers are saying. I'm wondering if the customer engagement is kind of one-on-one or one to few or one to many. Is it social listening or feedback on your social media channels, or is it more like these? I know you guys are really good at doing some webinars and TV interviews together with government. And are those the customer engagement things you're really talking about?
So all of the above. So I think the customer engagement comes in a lot of different ways. One is doing research on what are their strategic plans for the agencies you're trying to talk to. When you're at conferences, really attending the conference topics, as well as when your own people are speaking on a panel or interview, because I think you can hear a lot about what the government customers are talking about in those. We do a lot of engagements where we're on one-to-one panel discussions or interviews with government customers, and really understanding their point of view is critical. And then what I love too is being engaged with the sales team on sales calls, where you can be part of the customer conversation and really hear and learn what they care about and what they're trying to do for the public and service them, giving the best outcomes possible, and their commitment to that. And then we do look at social media. We also have a lot of insights from when we create content and people come back and visit our website. As you know, with the intelligence of websites today, we have a lot of feedback about what content is resonating. When we have people coming to the website, our new website has given us fantastic metrics on where people come in, how long they're staying, where are they going, what's their journey, how do we make the journey easier? And so all of those are component and piece parts of really listening.
I love that. And you're so right. Like being on those customer calls, if and when you can, or
Mhm.
speaking or with govies at events or listening to their panels at events, you know, it's so much, you get so much different kind of input when you hear it straight from the horse's mouth than if you hear it through a filter
Yeah.
of a news article or a salesperson even. So that's a really good point.
And I
Okay.
was going to also add that there's a lot of market intelligence that you can gather, right? Where you're looking at, there are tools that'll say, hey, what are the trends? So you can be informed. You can be an informed listener, which I think is critical because if you go into various meetings with either your internal teams and you're not informed, that's a disadvantage. If you go into, let's say you have a one-on-one panel that you've set up at a conference and we have a subject matter expert with a government speaker, you as a marketing leader want to be informed going into that about what they care about and how the topic is relevant to help them move their mission forward.
I love that. And the mission is so important. So, I know that as companies are coming up the maturity cycle, they go from very much kind of trying to identify what it is they do and what they're good at and talking about that to the industry versus and as they mature, they start to talk about what the industry needs or what the industry should be considering. So, what would you say to in-house marketing leaders about how to flip the script?
Yeah, that's a big topic for me, and I think it's super critical right now. I think that you have to look at what are the needs of the agency and not what you want to sell. I think it's critical to look at outcomes versus the technologies. And so leading with the outcomes and really having that strategic conversation with the customers is absolutely necessary right now and not leading with technology. And they're telling us they don't want the technology. They want solutions. They want us to understand their problems. They want us to understand why they're focused on it and also how rapidly they're being asked to accelerate program integration and execution.
Liz, as we're talking about flipping the script, do you have any other tips for marketers on how to translate marketing messages into acquisition priorities or align them with buyer journey or acquisition cycle?
Yes, so for that, I would say acquisition area has been underutilized and understaffed for, I would say, the last 10 years. And so trying to simplify and streamline the information that we're providing procurement and acquisition folks is really pivotal because you're trying to simplify a very complex solution often, but that is required in I believe to really make it easier for people to understand what solution you're providing, what the outcomes are being driven, how it fits into their strategic positioning, and mission focus. And so I think it's pivotal in this time to simplify the content and make it very short and accurate. I think so. One of the things we're seeing is moving to video responses for acquisition. And so we're going to see, I think, more of that where you get 5-10 minutes to talk about your solution. And some of it is even moving to uh, marketplaces, like on the DoD side is Tradewinds, where you have a 5-minute video to talk about everything about your solution and why it matters to the Department of Defense. So
Yeah, I love that. I remember hearing that at an event just last month where, there were government people up there saying, I want to hear from all of you, but I can't sit through capability briefing after capability briefing. Send me a video. And then if I like it, I can pass it around. Like, so it's almost evergreen.
Exactly.
That's great. So, talking about video then, how do you get the work done? There's so many different skill sets needed. You talked about diversity in your skill set. Um, for the boots on the ground marketers, maybe even marketing departments of one or two, how would you recommend they resource their teams?
Well, I think video capabilities is kind of its own beast. And so for me, when I was with Cisco, when I was with NetApp, we had capabilities to do in-house video. At Maximus, we can do in-house video. And then to scale, we support that with outsourcing as needed. But we have an amazing video team at Maximus. We have a green room, etc. So we're very fortunate. We're very fortunate. We have a fantastic team. But as a small business or a small entity, I mean, the only way for video from what I see is outsourcing. Now there are all different types of videos. We're doing a video today. There's all kinds of AI generated video that people can use. Absolutely. So you have to explore what works for you. My biggest concern around video is integrity of message and the brand. And so uh, that keeps me up at night.
Well, I've had sleepless nights on similar topics. Um, so, when marketing is a strategic driver and helping to set priorities and identify priorities, how do you communicate that strategy and that kind of driver role back to the organization to get engagement, buy-in, approval, feedback loop, all of that?
Yeah, I think communication is pivotal and it happens on a variety of levels. So it happens for me at the senior leadership level where uh, I have a weekly report, a weekly meeting. It also dovetails into a biweekly report that talks about all the key things that we're doing in market so that people can stay informed and engaged. They may want to participate or their teams may want to participate. It's also rolling up into an overarching executive level kind of report so that top senior leaders can look at what we're doing strategically to help the growth of the business. Um, and then all of the marketing managers on my team that have sales teams meet on a biweekly basis with their teams and they brief them on what we're doing. And then also the leaders have one-on-ones with the actual account teams that, let them know specifically what we're doing in those accounts. Now, if I'm expanding that, for example, if you're trying to update your technical teams, they have their own cadence of calls. We join them. If they're operation teams, to join their teams is the most effective way to do that. So there's not a different stream. And then also from a corporate perspective, I have a teams that I liaison at the corporate level, and I'm meeting with them on a monthly basis. So we can talk about shared challenges or just updating them on larger programs that affect maybe an overarching set of teams. And then to cascade information across the business, we do a federal newsletter that highlights some really big things that are important to the whole federal business. And then each of the markets have newsletters that pertain to civilian, healthcare, and DoD. So there's an array of communications that have to happen. What we're doing today at Maximus is different than I did at a medium system integrator or at a small business, right? And so kind of looking at internal communications for your organization and then mapping out the 2 or 3 things. Try them, test them. If they work, great. If they don't, stop.
Absolutely. One more question before we sign off. Just looking for your wisdom on how often teams should revisit and adjust the plan, and how, if at all, pilots should feed into the marketing approach.
So I think in a strategic capacity, quarterly review of plans is important. In the environment we're in, I think a more frequent review is probably best, like on a monthly basis, just to touch base with your teams, make sure you're up to date on everything that's possibly changing. For example, maybe there's a program you were going to go after and the team has decided not to. Those kind of really quick adjustments can be made. But I think it's important to have that plan be as agile and as real time as possible, and to be able to share that frequently. So there should be some space that you have plans that you can share with the sales team, so that they can review it and make sure that they're up to date. And I think the other thing is that there's input that needs to go into those plans that you can get from third parties like a Gartner or a Deltek or a BGov, that really enables you to keep up to date on changing acquisition areas or changing trends that could influence information that's going into that plan. So getting those additional inputs.
I love that. And the ability to just ask for that authority and grace to pivot and be responsive to the marketplace, and, to build that test and learn culture to protect your team.
Yes, I think actually, thank you for reminding me about that, because I think test and learn is critical in a vibrant marketing environment. And that we just, some things we'll do and they test and they're wildly successful, and then we'll repeat them and they become organic into the organization and the kind of the business pattern, right? And so then there'll be other things that you thought would be very powerful, and they just don't have the power of more than once. So I think it's really important to give your marketing team the ability to test and then to have an accurate assessment, so you can decide, is this the right thing to go forward.
Absolutely. That's a great even retention strategy, right? Like if you want to keep top talent in your marketing team, you have to let them experiment with all the new tools and channels and approaches that are out there, so they keep learning and get to do exciting cutting edge things.
Absolutely. With the acceleration of AI and other tools that are in the market right now, my team has brought forward many things that I would not myself have thought of. And I really appreciate all of them for the creativity and the expertise they bring to the table every day. Yeah.
Well, kudos to you for building such a diverse team.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time today. Was there anything that I didn't ask that you wanted to add?
No, I've really appreciated our time today. And I just would say to those folks that are in GovCon marketing listening, that it's a great place to be. And we're often leading the nation in terms of the things we have access to, and the types of programs and missions that we're hoping to and helping to support. And so it's a great place to be. So keep on going.
That's awesome. That's how we met too.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Branding the Beltway. If you're looking for an outsourced marketing partner or fractional marketing leadership who truly gets the GovCon sector, Piper Strategies is the team to know. We're not just here to deliver, we're here to empower. For resources or to inquire, visit piperstrategies.com.